Coming up, the U.S. Congress takes a step forward with a bill for a Truth and Healing Commission. The Phoenix PD faces fallout from a report on racial profiling within its department. Meet the Bush Fellow on a mission to keep the Ojibwe language alive. Plus, a relative of U.S. Representative Tom Cole is joining the National Native American Hall of Fame. Find out who. All that and more, next on the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Support for the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez comes from the Arizona PBS studios in Phoenix at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communications at Arizona State University.
Amidawa Hopa. Thank you for joining us. I'm Aaliyah Chavez. We start today in the Pacific Northwest, where for the first time, the U.S. government has acknowledged that the dams it built caused harm to Native American tribes. Last week, federal officials admitted that over the past century, it devastated tribes by overwhelming their villages with rapid economic development and destroyed salmon populations in order to bring electricity and jobs to the area. The Columbia River Basin, an area roughly the size of Texas, was once the world's greatest salmon-producing river system. According to a new report, the Biden administration states the government afforded little consideration to tribal communities, including to their cultures, sacred sites, economies, and homes. The Shasta Indian Nation is celebrating a land-back victory. Last week, Governor Gavin Newsom announced the state will return 2,800 acres of land to the tribe, which is just the latest chapter in a painful 150-year history. In the 1800s, the California Gold Rush displaced the Shasta people. Then in 1911, the tribe lost its remaining land base so that the Copco No. 1 dam could be built. Now, the state is removing the hydroelectric dams, and once it is complete, the land will be transferred to Shasta. Chairman Janice Crow called the action a turning point, saying his people can now weave a new generation with a return to culture and ceremony. In Oregon, a first-of-its-kind bill would take much-needed steps to address the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women if it is passed into law. Already, a piece of legislation from 2019 was signed aiming to tackle the issue, but 5 years later and little progress has been made. Oregon Governor Tina Kotek told Investigate West that she has not had a conversation about the MMIW issue in 5 years. Kotek had not read a 4-year-old recommendation report on the crisis, despite having her signature on it, adding that the crisis, quote, got lost in the COVID conversation. Now, State Representative Tanya Sanchez says she is considering new legislation that would declare a statewide emergency as well as other actions. To read much more on these efforts, you can search Oregon Report Identifies Missing Native American Women as an Emergency at ictnews.org. With less than 150 days until November's general election, many are bracing themselves for what's expected to be a close and contentious presidential race. In Nevada, there's a new voting process for certain groups, including for Native American people, which are a key demographic in the swing state. Americans use the internet for virtually everything, from learning the news and paying bills, and now for Native people in the Silver State to vote. Nevada's newly unveiled process, called the Effective Absentee System for Elections, or EASE, grants any tribal citizen who lives on a reservation or colony to receive and return a ballot electronically through a secure online system. Over 30 states allow certain voters to return ballots this way. In most cases, it's for those who serve in the military or for U.S. citizens who live abroad. In West Virginia, first responders on duty outside their county are eligible, and in Texas, astronauts are able to cast a ballot through an online portal. Nevada is believed to be the first to add tribal nations to its list, according to the Associated Press. The homelands of the Walker River Paiute stretch between Las Vegas and Reno. It is just one community where Native Americans have historically had issues accessing the ballot box.
We didn't get the total right to vote in every state until, I believe it was 1964.
There are 28 tribal nations here, an estimated 158,000 indigenous voters in a state where President Joe Biden won the 2020 election by just 2 percentage points. And while voting online has the potential to boost Native voter turnout, there is one big limitation: internet access.
Right now our tribe is working on updating our broadband system on the reservation. So again, a lot of people don't have internet service yet.
The EASE system was available for the 2024 presidential primaries, but no one from the Walker River Paiute tribe used it. Teresa McNally, the clerk-treasurer of Mineral County, says this could have been from a number of factors, including that tribal citizens didn't know it was an option.
I probably need to work on my advertising of the EASE system a little more. As we were talking about the tribe, I don't know how much knowledge they have on it. I have not went out and educated them.
As for the safety of the EASE system, it was designed with security measures in mind that verify a voter's eligibility and undergoes regular reviews. There are also precautions that ensure folks are not casting multiple ballots.
I am confident in our system. One is the verification process, but it's also to being able to validate the voter in a secure way.
Walker River Paiute chairwoman Andrea Martinez says she's hopeful in the system.
I think that would be a great idea to not only educate our youth because they're more tech savvy in that area, but also utilize them to teach our elders.
Moving internationally, Canada Post is honoring a world-renowned Native American water rights activist in this year's Indigenous Leader Stamp Series. Anishinaabe environmentalist Josephine Mandamin is one of 3 inspirational individuals featured on the stamps. Mandamin co-founded the Mother Earth Water Walk movement, drawing attention to the pollution and degradation of the Great Lakes and on First Nations reserves across Canada before passing in 2019. A ceremony commemorating Mandamin and her activism was held last week in Ontario and included her friends, family, and members of the community. Others featured on the series include Métis artist Christy Belcourt and Inuk artist Alyssa P. Well, Yupik baseball player Cohen Nikolai is representing Alaska in the big leagues. The 2-time Alaska Gatorade Player of the Year performed in front of talent evaluators during the recent MLB Draft Combine. The Combine features top prospects from both high school and college, with Nikolai being a University of Oregon commit. He is the first player from Alaska to appear in the showcase since its inception in 2021. A bill to establish a federal Indian boarding school Truth and Healing Commission has passed committees in Congress for the first time. The progress was hailed by backers of the bill who looked back and looked forward. Stuart Huntington has more on this landmark legislation.
The bill would establish a federal commission to conduct a full inquiry into the assimilative policies of U.S. Indian boarding schools and provide a report with a list of recommendations for justice and healing. Ruth Anna Buffalo from the National Native American Boarding School Healing Coalition said the moves in Congress were welcome.
This is so important for Indigenous communities and tribal relatives because it gives, and the country, it gives voice to those who were directly impacted by boarding schools and to the countless of missing children who never returned to their families.
The bill has passed a House committee and is headed for more hearings. In the Senate, it was reported out of the Indian Affairs Committee and could move to a floor vote. Representative Tom Cole was there at the beginning when Native lawmakers first got behind the effort.
I want to particularly single out my friend Sharice David. who is, a Ho-Chunk Indian, and we co-chair the Native American caucus together. She represents, she's a Kansas representative, and I would be remiss not to mention Deb Howland, because this all begins with us and Mark Wayne Mullen. We were all four, Native. I used to say when they were all there, we had the most balanced political caucus. We had two Republicans, two Democrats, two men, two women. We hope this uncovering of part of our history, the flashlight on, is a healing thing that helps us come to grip, but we hope it also helps the broader culture understand that there have been abuses and overreaches, and we may be the great melting pot of global history in the United States, and we are. But we don't expect Irish Americans to give up their Irish heritage and traditions to participate. We don't expect Italian Americans to have to do that. There was a point in our history where we did expect Native Americans to do that, and these boarding schools were instruments of that. So understanding the pain that was inflicted on individuals, the losses when sometimes children were literally forcibly separated from their families and certainly from their tribes. That's a story we need to know, and so that we never do this again.
And that those affected are never forgotten.
These are people's lives that we're talking about, and this is the justice that we're seeking for those who have passed on and who didn't receive justice and healing. And so we're keeping all of the survivors and boarding school relatives front and center and close to our hearts throughout this entire process.
Stuart Huntington, ICT News.
Visiting with family and relatives will help us from feeling lonely or socially isolated. COVID-19 changed everything, like our ancestors who survived war, famine, and epidemics. Our elders have to make sacrifices too. The more we are socially connected with our family and community, the less health problems we will have and the longer we will live. We need to stay active to keep our spirits alive. Remember, you are not alone. Connected together, we will stand strong. For more information on elder isolation or caregiver resources, go to connectedindigenousElders.org.
The U.S. Department of Justice has just released its findings after a years-long investigation into the Phoenix Police Department, finding malpractices on its use of force and enforcement of the law. ICT's Daniel Herrera starts our reporting.
The DOJ has recently released its report on the Phoenix Police Department.
We actually haven't had any opportunity to really digest it. All we can do is take at face value what the Assistant Attorney General said in her press conference.
The report found that the Phoenix PD has systematic problems that deprive people of their rights under the Constitution and federal law. According to the report, Phoenix PD uses excessive force, including unjustified deadly force. Shula Berlinger, CEO of Native American Connections, says this does not surprise her.
My initial thoughts were just, it's nothing new.
The report also found the police department to discriminate against Native American, Hispanic, and Black people when enforcing the law. Phoenix City Manager Jeff Barton says he does not like what he's heard from the findings.
It's not something that I like to hear, especially as a minority Black man myself.
The DOJ also found reasonable cause that the Phoenix PD violates the rights of people experiencing homelessness. According to the report, the police department detains and arrests homeless people without reasonable suspicion that they are involved in criminal activity. Second, the city and Phoenix PD seize and destroy property belonging to people who are homeless without providing adequate notice or opportunity for them to collect their belongings. Interim Police Chief Michael Sullivan says this finding surprises him.
I was a little bit surprised with that. I've been here since 2022, and I've had people reach out seeing how we deal with it, how we lead with services.
Jessica Cruz, Senior Director of Homeless Housing Services at Native American Connections, says there are accounts of police violating the rights of the unhoused.
We are aware of some accounts where, that has happened. And it's unfortunate because, there often are behavioral health concerns and um, disabilities, that our Phoenix PD unfortunately use excessive force and maybe not the most appropriate, um, actions.
So, what is the Phoenix PD doing to solve these issues?
We're in the process of training the entire department in that policy to make sure that they understand it. We also brought in evidence-based training that is about de-escalation. And we've gotten a good number of the department through that training, and that's ongoing as well. We have also trained in active bystandership for law enforcement. It's talking about intervening in situations to make sure that we don't have situations where there's misconduct and somebody doesn't step in, regardless of rank. So those are three big initiatives that are ongoing right now.
For ICT News, Daniel Herrera Carbajal.
Nitsika tai gitsi. Nitsika tai gitsi means I feel the good in what you've done. Nitsika tai gitsi. Nitsika tai gitsi. I feel the good in what you've done.
Perpetuating native language is important, and now one Ojibwe woman will deepen her knowledge through a recently received Bush Fellowship. ICT's Shirley Snavy has this interview with Michelle Goose, who started the conversation introducing herself in her native language.
Guju Junia Ko Indigenous Makwen Dudem Kazagasqua Jamaica and Dunjaba Nigi Kino Mage Nagajo Nangabe Kindaswigamigonk.
What will your sabbatical encompass?
Well, I'm hoping to do a lot of curriculum writing work to try to expand my program at the tribal college, and then also reaching out to other programs and hopefully collaborating on some work that other organizations are doing. And then I'd also want to travel, connect with other Indigenous language programs to see what I can learn from them to bring back home to my language efforts.
Why is language important to you?
It's a big part of my identity as an Ojibwe person. And I believe that's true for all Indigenous people, that our languages are a big part of who we are, and that the language holds the keys to understanding, deeper understandings of culture and of our identity. My journey with the language, it's really helped me to be a more confident person and to take more risks and take advantage of more opportunities than I maybe would have without the language. Like, I don't think I would have ever thought to apply for the Bush Fellowship if I wasn't involved in language work. It's kind of been a lifelong journey for me. So I was interested when I was a kid because I heard grown-ups and elders kind of using words here and there. So I was interested in it, and I would ask them questions like how to say words, and then didn't really have it in elementary school. There weren't many learning opportunities. But then in high school, we had language classes that were just kind of like basic language classes. And we had a language quiz bowl club that I participated in. So that really sparked my interest. And I decided when I went to college, I wanted to really focus on learning Ojibwe.
Languages need to make sense in everyday society. So how does that work for you?
My daughter, I've been trying to raise her as a bilingual Ojibwe speaker, and just kind of trying to do that and realizing how much more English there is. Like, she loves watching little videos of songs and like some of the kid YouTube influencers, and there just aren't really options like that for Ojibwe. So everything that's in English is like really well done and more interesting than the Ojibwe, the limited Ojibwe videos there are on YouTube. So having like mainstream media like Avengers dubbed into like Lakota or Ojibwe would be really, really impactful. It legitimizes the language, normalizes it for the children.
We turn to Oklahoma now, where famed storyteller and actress Teata Fisher will be inducted this fall into the National Native American Hall of Fame. Her great-nephew, U.S. Representative Tom Cole, will accept the honor on her behalf because she passed away in 1995. Our Stuart Huntington visited with Representative Cole about this milestone.
Representative Cole, welcome to our show.
Thank you. It's an honor to be with you.
Sir, Mary Frances Thompson Fisher, better known as Teata, is being inducted into the National Native American Hall of Fame, and you, sir, are going to represent her at the ceremony. That seems like quite an honor.
It is a terrific honor for me. It's a terrific honor for our family, and it's a terrific honor for our tribe, Chickasaw Nation, which has recognized her so much, and so it's going to mean a lot to a lot of people. She was an extraordinary figure. Most people don't know this, but she delivered the first White House entertainment in the East Room for President Roosevelt in March of 1933, when Prime Minister of the British Empire, Ramsay MacDonald, visited. She entertained at Hyde Park when the King and Queen of England came in 1939. So she performed all over the world. There's a lake named after her in New York, which is a long way away from Chickasaw country. If you go to, there's books about her, plays about her, movies about her, thanks to my tribe. So an extraordinary woman, extraordinary life. And we're very proud to see it recognized in this way.
Sir, I wonder if you could share with us an anecdote from your life and interactions with her.
Well, I can share so many because she was the great matriarch of the family, and we are a matriarchal people. But I remember one. I mean, the joke in my family is you could look at me and my brother, and you'd say my brother could lead a Chickasaw war party. I look like I'm one of the guys they brought back. I mean, I've got the Scotch-Irish side of our family, and he's got all the lovely color. And so as a young person, I would be teased about this. My family always raised us to be very proud that we were Chickasaws, that we're Native. And I remember mentioning this on the playground one day. Somehow it came up, and kids are pretty tough. And well, you're not Indian. You don't look like you're an Indian, so you can't be an Indian. And I went home, and Teata happened to be visiting us for dinner. And I looked at her and I said, "Aunt Teata, how much Indian am I?" And she goes, "Wrong question." I'll never forget, because her nostrils flared out, her eyes narrowed. Again, wrong question. You either are or you aren't, and you are. So it sort of settled my identity for the rest of my life, because this most important figure had told me that this is a matter not just of blood quantum, but of cultural affiliation, of history, of whatever. And again, I always say this about Native Americans. You never ask anybody, how much American are you? I mean, you either are or you aren't. So why? And when I talk to non-natives, they'll ask me quite often, "How much Indian are you?" No Indian ever asked me that. I mean, they don't look at it that way. And I think so many people see tribal affiliation as simply racial identity. That's not what it is. It's a political identity. It's a cultural identity. It's an historical identity. And I think my great aunt knew that more than most. And she never gave an inch in terms of the identity and the importance of the role of Native Americans in the broader American history and the unfolding American story. She was very determined to represent that in a very positive way, and a very proud way that recognized our past, but also recognized we have a future inside this larger collective, and we can participate in that without giving up our identity. But I never met anybody that was prouder of being Native, or prouder of their tribe, or more optimistic about the future of Native Americans and her particular tribe than my great aunt Teata. She literally was never, ever anything other than proud and positive about her Native heritage and her tribal heritage. So to see her recognized like this, again, it's a wonderful thing for our family and certainly our tribe, but I think also for all Native Americans, because it's a very positive story about who we are and what we can accomplish.
You've touched on this in many ways, sir, but if Teata had a message for a young Chickasaw woman today, what might that be?
Your possibilities are endless, but to never compromise on who you are, what your heritage is, be proud of it, participate in it, and never give an inch in terms of protecting our cultural identity and our role in the country. But again, don't be shy. Take your talents out to the world.
Representative Cole, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's very much my honor, and thank you so much for recognizing, I think, an extraordinary woman, a great Native American, and a role model, quite honestly, for all people in the country. And I always say, if you have a daughter, you particularly want to know her, because she was, again, way ahead of her time, not just in advocating for us, but in letting people know there was an important role for women, and particularly Native American women, to play in the broader culture. And she played it to the hilt, to the very last day of her life, and that was almost 100 years. So extraordinary life.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.